Hello Linux lovers, how are you? My name is Wimpy, welcome to my world. Right, I'm obviously using OBS here right now, and the other morning I gave a breakdown of how the OBS snap is composed in order to bake in lots of functionality. One bit of functionality is NvFBC, which is sort of better known in the Windows world as shadow play, an efficient way to do screen capture. And that is failing to build from source in OBS 27.
Thank you for the follow, host on
okay, let's just report that one. Okay. Yeah, it fails to build from source, and I need to fix that because I'm streaming with work later on today, and I need to use that very thing to do the screen capture that we use in our presentation. So later today, if you're interested in leveling up your Docker and container skills, at 8 p.m. UK time, 3 p.m. Eastern in the US, we'll be doing a follow-on from our Containers 101 to take you from a sort of very beginner container creator to implementing some best practice about how to create your containers to make them production ready. But OBS 27 or 27.1 has got an essential component which is failing to compile, so I'm going to fix that now so that we have a new shiny version of OBS to do the stream with. And the reason I need the release candidate 2 is because the release candidate 1 has been a little bit unstable. Now, if none of this works, I can go back to 27.0.1, but for the moment we'll try and fix things. So, oh, hello, there's a few people in chat already. Good morning. Hello, Paul. Welcome back. How are you? Hope everyone's well today. Yeah, oh, you just got a fresh cup of tea. Me too. Hey, Yannick. Welcome back, Takov. And hello, Kimra. Good morning. Thanks very much for stopping by. So, I'm just going to click a button up here because there's one of these chatbots has joined, and I'm just going to okay, it's a bot. It's a follow bot. There we go. It's the first time I've actually had to type those things, but I'm just reporting a follow bot close. Right, done. Right, that's good. Right then, so without further ado, in fact, I'm using the feature that's currently broken in the build. Oh, hello. Good morning, Mr. Pope. I can't quite make out those color schemes there. Let's move down here. So, hey, Popey, how you doing? It's your 5-month sub anniversary. Blimey, thank you very much. That's very generous of you. I must owe you a pint by now. You're not a chatbot. No, it wasn't you. It was something else. But I have put the guardrails up, so hopefully, if anything goes awry, I can deal with it. So, thanks. Oh, hey, thanks very much for the sub, Camera. That's very kind of you. So I was watching some sort of information on how to deal with bot raids and all the rest of it. So I've tweaked my Twitch configuration, but one of the tips is if you do get raided, run an ad. So if there are, I don't expect it at all, but if it does happen, that is the only time I will manually trigger mid-roll ads. So there we go. No, everyone's getting these bots following their channels now. Yannick thinks I'm famous. No, definitely not. You wish I had bots on your channel. Right, hey, welcome back, Jeff and Graham. Good morning. Right, let's get into this then. Let's just move over to this terminal. And in fact, the feature I'm using here, which is doing this screen capture, is using NvFBC. And here's a terminal. and maybe if I make the font a bit bigger here. This is what's currently happening with the current version of the OBS Snap. When I build it, it falls over here and says that it can't find this define for pthread mutex recursive, and suggests maybe I should use this version of the define. Now, I did in fact do that, and it all builds and everything's fine. But the problem is this isn't a fix that you can make to OBS, and you can see this if you look at the code here. This is in the threading.h file from OBS itself, and a new helper was added in the OBS 27.1 RC2, which is a new helper for creating recursive mutexes. So this issue has only shown up since this was added, and initially I thought it was a bug in OBS, but it's not. I did temporarily fix it by adding the mutex recursive NP, but the NP there means non-portable. So that's bad, because obviously OBS is indeed a platform portable application running on Windows, Linux, Mac OS, and the BSDs as well. So I can't go and make a change that says, hey, use this non-portable implementation. So I went and did a bit of poking around in the OBS FBC, NvFBC code itself. And I discovered something, and we're going to take a look at that now, if I can just remember where my browser is. So if we find OBS NvFBC, which is on GitLab somewhere, here we go. This is the project, and this appears to be the issue in the project here, in the Mason build file. It sets the C standard to C99, and I looked in the history of this file, and this was added a couple of months ago in this commit. So it says require at least C99. Now that's not, the problem with that is it instructs the compiler to ignore certain feature flags from the language, and one of the things I discovered is that let's go back to our terminal. Too many things, that terminal. Is that this define is exposed in the pthread library, but it's guarded by a use C98 flag. So by the NvFBC thing requiring the C99 standard, this define doesn't get exposed when building on Linux. And curiously, on Linux, the C standard is GNU C99, I think. And with that as the standard C, sort of dialect, it compiles and builds just fine. So I've sort of monkeyed with it a bit in order to get this working. So what I have is this. I'm at the point where it's failing to build, and I've made a note in the YAML here. Oh gosh, I've just scrolled off. Let's just go. Fine, here we go. I've made a note here that this helper was added in OBS 27.0 RC2, and this is the commit that it was added in. And it uses the pthread mutex recursive define, which is guarded by use Unix 98. So we're going to override the Mason build C standard 99 with C standard GNU 99. It does happen to be the default for Linux if you don't fiddle with it, to prevent it failing to build from source. And I'm going to do this simply by overriding the Mason build defaults to use GNU 99, which technically I shouldn't need to do because that is the default on Linux, although it's been overridden at a project level. So I'm going to save that.
RIKW22W.
Thanks, Rick. Thanks very much for the follow. I appreciate that. And Popey says, is that the fish shell down the bottom? Yes, that is indeed the fish shell with a power line add-on called, I think it's called Bob the Fish, which is the power line extension, which does all of that fancy, Git status interpretation. So if I now go back to my terminal and I ran Snapcraft in debug mode, which means when Snapcraft encounters sort of a fatal error, it drops you into a shell inside the VM where it's being built so you can figure out what's going on. So if I just run Snapcraft now, this has sort of got a bind mount to the project outside of the VM that it's building in. So those changes I've just made in the YAML in my Visual Studio Code editor are live inside the VM where the build is happening. So if I run Snapcraft now, it will pick up the fact that I've added that override to Mason, he says. Oh no, I need to clean it, don't I? I need to clean OBS NvFBC, which is the part that I'm modifying here. And now if I run it, it will pick up from that point in the build. And it should just... What? Did I save it? Ah. This definitely worked earlier. What the heck? Oh, I remember. I actually needed to completely flush the build cache. That's what I needed to do. Let's try that again. I'm going to sit here and run around the same loop. There we go. So there we go. Now it's built that plugin and it will move on with the rest of the build now. So all of the plugins that come follow will now just hopefully build and we'll get a new snap out the end of it. So let's have a look. Yeah, I like the well, I love the fish shell, but the whole power line sort of status stuff I find really useful. Yeah, so I use my shell. I mean, maybe I can do a thing about my fish shell configuration at some point in the future, because I'm a big fan of fish, and I don't have that many add-ons for fish because it doesn't really need them. So other than setting a theme and a few options and a power line add-on, it's all good. So it says here, Yannick, I've built a snap and I pull a lot of tricks from the OBS Snapcraft YAML and Popey's spot snap. Yeah, I mean, Popey and I certainly pumped out a load of snaps over the years, and there's some good reference stuff there. The OBS Studio snap is handy because I think all the different build tools are used, Auto Tools, CMake, Mason, and then with all of the stuff you can do with it, and it's got layouts. I mean, go back, and if you haven't seen it, go back and watch that video from a couple of days ago. I went and did a thorough overview of what was in there and why and how it's configured and the features that you get. So yeah, it's a good reference for sure. Yeah, and Popey and Yannick are talking about using the shell after as well. Yeah, actually there's a call for testing on the Snapcraft forum. You should have 5 minutes to spare. Call for testing what, Yannick? I need to find some time to install all my shell. Yeah, I think so. I use all my fish as the thing to install fish plugins. Also, hello Esme. Ooh, a fish video would be good. Yeah, I'll do that. Maybe we could do that on Friday. That's tomorrow, isn't it? Do that tomorrow morning. Have a look at how I set up fish. it's super simple, but you know, I love fish. It's such a time saver, such a time saver. I think the thing that will trip most people up with fish is if you're used to doing complex sort of compound things on the command line and you have to adapt that to fish syntax. I mean, just, you know, piping and redirecting, that all just works. It's very rare, you know, you find a command that, you know, doesn't work, but I just can't function without it. Fish is my memory in the terminal. It's just absolutely fantastic. So Esme says, I've been sticking to Bash too. I'm really boring with trying technical interfaces. I started using Fish a long time ago now. It's probably 7 or 8 years. Yeah, I can't speak highly enough about it. It'd be really good to know what you like about it, says Graham. I tried it the other week, but felt it didn't solve any problems I had, but perhaps I just don't know. Okay, I'll go over why I love Fish, and if you're Control R heavy, Graham, then Fish is for you. It's just you don't need to use Control R. But, you know, the history recall in Fish is its killer feature for me. And I'll give some examples of that. Yeah, I just changed my system shell, my user shell as well. So I install Fish and then I modify my profile to use Fish by default. But the system shell is still, well, Bash or Dash, depending on, you know, where in the boot process you are. Right, okay, so that built, there it is. So all I'll need to do another day is figure this out. We go back and look at the project. So we've obviously got this override here at a project level. I think this will require some kind of Mason macro to enumerate the compiler that's being used in order to determine the platform and then set this C standard option accordingly. This person that's made a bunch of the recent commits, that's improved a whole bunch of stuff, but a lot of their work was actually adding multi-platform support, so it works on Windows as well. And I think that maybe some of these commits are just, well, up until that helper was added, it worked fine. But this just highlighted a little portability issue for Linux. So I'll have a think about how I address that. Yeah, that was a curious one. But now we've got an OBS 27.1 RC2 that's now built with all of the bits and bobs inside it that I need. So I'll install that later. Am I on the right screen? I am now. So, how are we doing? So, oh, it's actually a bit smaller. That's curious, isn't it? I wonder why it's 8 megabytes smaller. Well, it's the same size as the 27.1, so maybe there was something weird about that one that made it 8 megabytes bigger. Anyway, okay. So, that was a little thing I found. But this NvFBC stuff is kind of essential to what I do. If you've got an NVIDIA card, it makes screen capture a lot more efficient. And when we're doing the game streaming, it wasn't until I added this that was viable when we were doing, you know, multi-party game streaming. We actually amazingly hit the limit of what a Threadripper can do and what an RTX 3090 can do very easily. And it just goes to show the NVIDIA stuff is extremely powerful, but it's really only powerful when you're using all of their sort of APIs and special features. Something that I'm interested to look at is I've started to see murmurings that the hardware accelerated video encoding on the 6000 series AMD GPUs is looking quite decent now. So I'm researching some tools to make an objective comparison, so actual science, to actually say which encoder is putting out the better quality video encode with like the same parameters of operation. So I'm thinking of doing something with that where we can look at X264, you know, on the CPU encoding versus NVENC versus, I don't know what AMD call it on, what the actual name of the encoder is, but it's exposed through the VA API on Linux. So sort of take a look at those, use like CBR 6000 kbits, 60 frames per second, 1080p, which is sort of, you know, a fair standard for Twitch, and then see, well, which produces the better quality output, and then you can do a little comparison as to what cost that has on like your system performance. So that's something I'm really keen to have a play with, because maybe the days of NVENC being all powerful are behind us. But then I did just see this morning that what is shaping up to be Fedora 35 has got the new Wayland drivers inside it, and has got all of the accelerated desktop, you know, with GNOME and Wayland and the current drivers and everything, including fractional scaling. So it looks like the next batch of NVIDIA drivers could be the one that open up a Wayland future for those people that are on the Wayland train, which is an increasing number of people now that Ubuntu has made the switch. Yannick says, I've just adopted Bob the Fish. Very good. It is Bob the Fish, which is the power line. And in addition, you need a power line modified font. So I use Nerd fonts, and they have Ubuntu font family with the Powerline extensions. How did you install that? Shall I get into this now? Shall we? Because I've kind of done the OBS thing. Shall we quickly go and look at how I do my fish setup? Let's go down here again. Let's go to the terminal. Exit out of my build environment. So I've got a script called a series of scripts called software, and one of these is called shell. So let's bring this up in shell. Okay, so this is what I use to sort of configure all things terminal related on my system when I do a new install. So the first thing is that I like to use Tilix or Tilix terminal emulator, and I override Mate terminal with Tilix so that all of the keybinds just start Tilix. Now this is the nerd font that I was referring to. So this downloads the Powerline patched Ubuntu mono font, because that's the only one you need for the terminals. You don't need the rest of the typefaces. It then unpacks that into TrueType Ubuntu mono NF, and then rebuilds the font cache. So if I open up the font viewer and bring this down, search. Can I just search for nerd? There we go. You'll then find you have a series of fonts which have nerd font in the name, and you can see I've got these Ubuntu mono variations, and for regular use they look exactly like Ubuntu, but it's got all of these glyphs and things added in which do all of this, fancy stuff. So once you've got those fonts installed, you can then install fish. This is how I install fish. So install curl fish and Python 3 pip. Can't remember why I need that, but anyway. And then I change my shell for the current user to fish because I've just installed it. So that switches my profile over to fish. none of this you'll need to worry about. This is because over time, the way I've configured fish has changed, and all this does is if I'm updating a machine which got an old fish configuration, it basically hoovers up my mess from the past. So these RMs you don't need to care about. This is how you install OhMyFish. You curl get.o-my.fish and pipe it into fish, and that installs fish. And then this I then run. So I expressly call fish and say, OhMyFish install Bob the Fish, which is the Powerline enabled prompt. And then I run these bunch of configurations to then configure my fish configuration. So I say, use the Powerline fonts. Yes, they're nerd font. I don't like the date being displayed at the end of the line here, so I turn that off. And then just a bunch of options, and that's it. And that is how I install and get it working. So, but if you look in OhMyFish, is it list? Oh, that's what I've got. Let's do help. Oh, in fact, I'm doing it in the wrong terminal. Let's go here. So, OhMyFish help. Manage search. Is it just, I think, does search give me the full list? I can't remember, but you can just go to OhMyFish and find all of the things that, you know, it has available, themes and add-ons. So yeah, I did used to add quite a lot of stuff to OhMyFish. The thing is you need to be aware this is like basically adding stuff to your fish profile, and if you get a bit too carried away, then it can be quite like slow on each you know, run round. So choose your plugins carefully. And I used to use for the Powerline thing a tool called Shelder, but that is now the maintainer hadn't updated it for a few years and actually said, I'm no longer maintaining this. I suggest you switch to Bob the Fish. So I did. So that's it. It's really not that hard. It didn't really need a whole thing of itself. So I'll have to have a think about what we're going to do tomorrow morning now. But as I'm here and Graham was asking the question, let me give some examples of why I like this. If I change to my OBS directory, this is where we were just building the snap. If I type the letter S, that's all I've done. Fish knows that when I'm in this directory, the most frequent command I run that starts with the letter F is snapgraph --debug. So I press S and then cursor right to get to the end of the line, and that's it. I just hit return. That is the command that I want. By comparison, if I go to development and Debian, yeah, okay, PKG mate brisk menu. So this is where the Debian packaging for brisk menu exists. If I type D, it knows when I'm in this directory, the most frequent command that I run is that starts with D is dpkg build a source package. And again, I press D, right arrow, press return, and that's it. And so the reason that I like this is because now I used to have like my own private wiki pages of the commands I needed to do things, and I'd always go and look things up and remind myself how to do things, and I don't have to worry about that anymore. You know, the other thing I do here is maybe I nano a file, and so I've typed in nano and it says, well, the one you seem to edit the most is Debian watch, and I'm thinking, well, no, I don't want to edit that one. So I scroll up. In fact, this is a bad example here because I don't actually do a lot in this package. But maybe I could do Debian and then, so what I did there is I typed Debian DE and it brought this up. Now, if I hit Control and right arrow, it will move one word through the command. So now I'll type C and it knows maybe changelog. So now end of the command. So instead of doing, nano Debian / changelog, what I actually typed here was N control right /C right. So it's just so few key presses to get to the things you want to do. Now that whole, control right, move right, that's second nature to me now because I've been using fish shell for such a long time. It's muscle memory. But that's like the power of fish for me is that the history recall is excellent. And one of the things that I do is I use, if I just go to my home directory, I use Yadim. So if I just do Yadim status, this is yet another dot manager. If I do Yadim status and it uses like a git, it uses basically git syntax, you will see that my fish history is here. And on all of my machines, I use the same fish history. So, and that gets checked out in my dot files when I set up a new profile. So I build a new machine, I set up Yadim and import my config. And now my fish history that I've built up over 7 years is available immediately, and so I'm just super productive right from the get-go. So well, I've missed a few things. Hopefully that all made sense. So let's just take a look at some of the chat that whizzed by whilst I was just sort of running through some of those reasons why I love the fish shell. So I'm gonna have to watch the bod to see all those options again. Yeah. Are you switching the user shell? Yes, just the user shell, Takov. Yeah, change shell. So that script that sets up the shell runs as a regular user. It doesn't run as a privileged user. So it's only making changes to that user's profile. Screenshotted the options. Well, I tell you what, let's do better than that. Let's do this. If I go to scripts, software, shell, let's do, I haven't got it installed. Let's install paste binit. That's the wrong password. What's my password, Yannick? So let's do paste binit /shell. There we go. There's the link in chat as well. Oops, I've just started the wrong thing. So let's just go to the correct browser. Hopefully. Oh, I need to. Well, hopefully, because again, my paste binit credentials are also in my dot file manager. So hopefully that works. Thanks for the follow. SGTG Go. That's a complicated username. Oh well, thanks. Oh, actually, it's a prime sub. Thank you. That's very kind. Sergeant Guade. Is that how we're pronouncing that? It looks better if I look in the history. So yeah, there's a thing there. The Ubuntu paste does. Oh, did I used ubuntu.com. Okay. And thanks very much for the sub, Torpedo Luke. That's very kind of you. Thanks for that. Right, let's just make sure I haven't missed any of the chat things here. I wonder if I could put that paste bin in something not behind a login. Let's do paste bin it. Not in the right window. I think we can do send it somewhere else, can't we? No. Can't remember. Oh, list all supported paste bins. There it is. Okay, let's do -b. What should we do? Pastebin.com? Is that jammed full of ads these days? Well, let's do it. And let's do /shell. There we go. Oh, we didn't like that. Crikey. Okay. fpaste.org. I've never used that before. Is that going to work? Well, this is dire, isn't it? It's not very good. No. Okay. Let's try Debian. There we go. Right, let's try this one. Let's put this in the chat as well. Hopefully, therefore, then people will be able to get to these. Right, let's try this. So let's try. There we go. There's one that you can get to without having to mess about. There's the whole thing. So there we go. Victory. So where were we? Reminds me of McFly, which has a little neural engine to work out what you're most likely to want to run. Yes, I guess it is a bit like that. It's sort of context aware history. And Esme says, I never thought this much into how best to make interaction on Linux efficient. This has been so insightful to hear the thought through. Thank you. I'm glad you found that useful. You're welcome. I'm glad that was helpful, and you've now got a paste bin that everyone can access here. Oh yeah, DIRENV as well. That's absolutely fantastic. I love that tool. Again, saves you a whole bunch of faff. If you've got, like for me, working on different projects, I need different GPG keys for signing different things, or different email addresses to be inserted into different stuff, and Git configuration. I do all of that with DIRENV. Maybe that's a video. DIRENV and YADIM, they're my two superpowers these days, because I don't have to remember any of that stuff. It's all done through code. I love it. And Graham says, do you find that its predictions, which it makes very early, can be something totally different? Rarely. On occasion, I'll type D and it will give me a different D PKG option. But it happens infrequently. But yes, you can type more characters and the prediction will tighten. It will adjust the prediction as you go. So, for example, let's do this. If we go to development, I've probably not done this enough in a directory for it to be accurate, but let's try. If I do D like so, okay, dpkg, but if I now type E, it now changes to deb build. So if I knew that I wanted to build a binary package here, I typed DE and I now get the correct command. Whereas if I type DP, I get the dpkg build. If I type L, so if I type L, obviously the default is LS, right? As it's going to be. So if I type LI, it knows I'm probably wanting to run Lintian, But you will see that Lintian, I run all over the place. So the last part of the Lintian command is always a different package, but that's neither here nor there to change that. So yeah, you can just type a few more characters to narrow the search down. and use tab to stop the autocomplete at the next. Yeah, I'm not really thinking too much about the keys that I press because it just happens naturally now. I actually had to stop myself because I realized I'd push some keys when I was demoing earlier. So also, if you type fast, you can override it. Yes, you can. So dpkg. Let's imagine there's a dput command, dpu. So it changes again. But let's imagine there was a command dpux. Then now I can just type. So it will show you the predictions, but you can type beyond them, overtype them effectively. Yes, it will do. Yeah, so build. Hang on. dpkg build. No, that's not working. dpkg. No, okay. You've just changed to fish as well. Well, send your love over to the fish developer. I'll be interested to hear in future streams how you all are getting on with the fish shell, whether you stuck with it or not. But I'm glad that was useful for some of you. At least you've heard my rationale as to why I like the fish shell and what I think is good. So box fish for now. What's that? I'll have to debug it later. Bob the fish, slightly balked. So you're using box fish. I'm not sure what that is. Let's go and have a quick look. Am I going to be able to find that if I look it up? Fish shell box fish. Ooh, crikey. That'll be those optomechanical switches there. Oh, it's a theme. Box fish. Okay. Oh, it looks new. Which is probably why I've not heard of it. Let's go down here. Box fish. A theme for Oh My Fish. Some minimal ASCII only. Okay. Oh, okay. So this is without power line. Okay. Yeah, if you're using a power line enabled shell prompt, you do need a power line font. Oh, and the other thing you will need to do is this. For example, if I go into my Tilix preferences in here, you will see, hopefully you can see, I've chosen the nerd font for the font to use in the terminal emulator. Because if you don't do that, you need to tell it to use a powerline font. So you can do that there, and then depending on your distro, I think it's here, in Ubuntu Mate, I also changed the fixed width font here to the nerd font, so that then applications that say use the system, monospace or terminal font will pick this up rather than, something else. So yeah, you do need to instruct your terminal emulators to now use that powerline enabled font as well. Yeah, and Fira code is very popular. Yeah. How do I install the nerd font? So if you just go back, Mr. MLX, if you just go back through the chat history a little bit, you'll find a paste bin for Debian.net that I plonked in. Let me just find it and repaste it. Gosh, there's been a lot of chat. I've missed a lot of what was said. Here we go. I'll repaste it. He says, if I could just highlight it. There we go. That's how I install fish shell, including the powerline enabled nerd font.
Thank you for the follow, MRMLX.
Thanks very much, Mr. MLX, for the follow. I appreciate that. Do paste bins live forever? I don't know. Let's go and look at what the default is on that one that I sent to Debbie. And I think they used to be live forever by default, didn't they? this one will expire in a week by default, by the looks of it. You can usually, you know, provide a flag. I should probably add something like this because it's better to use one that people can actually see by default. Yeah, I did think about using a gist, but I thought, you know, paste bin it's from the shell. It's nice and easy, isn't it? Right then. Well, with that, I need to go and finish doing my prep for the stream we're doing later today over on Slim DevOps. So for those of you that are in the stream now and weren't at the beginning, I also stream with my colleagues from work. We do sort of Docker superpowers and containers stuff. And a couple of weeks ago, we did what we called Containers 101, which was like you know nothing about Docker and containers. How do you make a Docker image? So we did that, stuck to the absolute basics, and today we're going to sort of level that up to sort of a more intermediate level, which is taking really the bare bones Docker file and adding some sort of best practice so you could take that Docker image and put it into production and know that you're doing pretty much all of the right things and ticking all of the boxes that your, you know, DevSecOps department would probably want you to do. So, you know, after this one, maybe go and give Slim DevOps a follow, because we'll be over there later doing a little Docker workshop. Now, something I've been terrible at, we're going to try and fix right now, is seeing if there's somebody to raid. So I'm just going to go to Twitch and then go, I'm going to have to remember to mute. There we go. Let's go and find the software and development. Let's see, is there somebody else here doing something fun? Auto-generated YouTube short. That's pair programming, a charity project. Here we go. Here's one that sounds like our kind of people. Right then. So let's pick up this channel here. In fact, it's interesting. It's the same language that drew my attention as last time. Right. Okay. Let's go with this then. So I'll move back over here. We'll raid a channel. I'm still not 100% certain how I do this. Right then. So thank you all for coming. Hopefully I'll see you later on Slim DevOps, but failing that, maybe I'll see you tomorrow morning for another cup of tea and some Linux chat and what have you. Right, let's try and do this thing. Let's start and have a great day, everyone. Thank you all for coming. Why is this? Here we go. We're gonna hit the raid button. Let's do it. Thanks everyone. Bye for now. Right. Bye bye.